Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm founder and CEO Jim West, and today we have a guest that is not only a two times best-selling author, which we're going to definitely talk about his books. He is the CEO and founder of Kirkham IronTech, which he's got his logo right up there in the background. And this guy has done he covers a lot of ground in cyber, but if anything, the number one title that he'll probably carry is evangelist because he likes to spread user awareness on all the dangers that we are facing when we're out on the web, on the internet, and anything in our interconnected world, if you will. So without further ado, it's Tom Kirkham. So if you go ahead and continue that introduction and let people know a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, as you said, I'm CEO and founder of Kirkham IronTech. It's 25 years old now. And my job these days for the past several years has been evangelizing cybersecurity awareness and realizing that it's such a huge industry. And because we all know, those of us that are listening or on the show here, that, as experts, we know that humans are the weakest link. And if you do nothing more in a company than implement continuous cybersecurity awareness training, you cut your risk in half. So all of these wonderful tools and techniques and tactics and frameworks and all of these other things that we have to put in place is because of human failure. And it's such an important part. I've even hired people that are got credentials down their arm, right? All these stripes for all the different certifications and security. And even they are amazed at the statistics when you start really digging into how big the hacking industry is and just have no idea. And I think that if all of us would add that to our repertoire, especially when we're speaking to end users or the those of us that aren't in the industry, and that's what my two books are targeted towards, not my peers. There's plenty of books out there for that. Yeah, these books were raising, the first one was raising the awareness of what would a global cyber pandemic look like, and then Hack the Rich was about or is about the special needs of high net worth individuals, especially these family businesses that have a lot of wealth, but there may only be four or five people in the company.
Mhm.
So typically home office or they probably have an office, but large real estate holdings, commercial real estate, things like that, or any high net worth individual. And since I've written that book, especially now with the advent of AI and fully automated spear phishing campaigns, I think the lessons in that book apply to anybody, even if you're not, worth $1 million.
I think, Tom, you bring up a good point about, with the hack the rich, it doesn't have to be a small business that's super profitable, like making millions of dollars. If you're a startup and every dollar is crucial for money is your lifeblood, right? And the amount of not just the money, but the time you invest into getting your business off the ground. If you're a small to medium business, you're at an exceptional level of risk because again, if you get, if a $100 million plus company gets ransomware, they're going to have a good chance of surviving that type of attack. But if your business is operating, let's say at a margin of, let's say 600, 700, 800,000, and you get wiped for 500,000 or more, or all of your asset value or liquid value, and data is the lifeblood of your company, and you get ransomware, a ransomware attack takes you off the face of the planet. You don't exist in next quarter. So you're just one moment away from your whole business going up in smoke literally due to a ransomware or some other cyber attack. So I think even for the criticality rate of a small to medium business, again, I think it's much more critical that they pay attention to what your book's trying to tell them. With that being said, could you maybe give us like what is the main takeaway? And I don't want to give away too much of the content of the book because obviously anyone that wants to check out these books, we're going to have the links to them in the description below. So don't worry about having to Google search those. He's got them on the screen there, but we'll make it easier for you. Tom's going to give me all the links and everything that's going to be down there in the description. But Tom, what would be the biggest takeaway for a small to medium business owner right now that's listening, going, okay, you got my interest. What would be the number one biggest takeaway they're going to get from, let's say, Hack the Rich and then from cyber pandemic?
Well, especially for our clients, many of our clients are professional service firms, accounting, financial advisors, law firms. these professional services firms, what is the most valuable thing that company has? It's
Their clients
reputation.
and
Yeah, well,
reputation.
it's
Yeah.
reputation.
Hmm.
And because you won't have any clients if your reputation gets damaged. So exactly like you said, the risk profile of, say, these SMBs, these small and medium sized businesses, it can dramatically change overnight. Now, there's some research that says it's 4 to 5 times cheaper to do defensive, left of boom stuff. Boom is the event, right of boom is the cleanup, but left of boom is where it's so much cheaper to invest and lower your risk profile, lower your risk period, and take that risk from whatever it is, 5 or 10% chance of being hacked in any one given year, reduce it down to point one or point zero 0.01 or point zero zero 0.001 by doing the right things, which is what we all know. There's very little disagreement. We may get into a discussion about whether CrowdStrike or Sentinel-1 is better, but ultimately, it's EDRs and all of these best practices, password managers, continuous cybersecurity awareness training, complex passwords, turn on MFA wherever possible, all of these things that we all know and we all say the same things. But if you don't realize that you're 1 minute, 1 day, 1 week to a fatal cyber attack on your business, then you don't understand the risk profile of your business.
Hmm.
I'm amazed at especially in SMB. I'm amazed at the number of them that do not put any proactive defense tactics and strategies and tools, but they won't bat an eye when their insurance agent comes in and said, "Oh, you probably want to get this cybersecurity insurance policy."
Yeah.
And they go ahead and pick it up, and that's the wrong way to go about it. I mean, what's the denial rate on cybersecurity insurance claims these days? I don't even remember, but I'm sure it's 20 to 40%.
And by the time you even try to, get the police reports, get all the information you need to submit anyway, can take weeks, months, and then you're DOA, you're dead in the water, can't generate any income, and your clients have left. They left the door, and you've got again writing off losses. And so, dealing and insurance is kind of the after the fact. And what you mentioned, I love it, is that it's that old statement, is as tell as old as time, where it's like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so I love that. I love that you got to start thinking about it before it happens. What are all the things you could do? And a lot of these things aren't doesn't take a rocket scientist. If you could read and understand just basic simple concepts of like you mentioned, password managers and all these things that are readily available at everyone's fingertips, you just got to educate yourself. Like take 5-10 minutes of your day to read about a password manager and just do a Google search. What are the top low cost of what I love the phrase of low cost to no cost, especially if you're a small or medium business owner. That word is magic to your ears. Low cost to no cost that are recommended by professionals. You can do searches on this, and there's lots of lists out there that with a lot of different recommendations. Some are sponsored ads and so forth. That's the nature of the internet. But doing something is better than doing nothing. So I definitely love that about your works. So beyond your books, though, Tom, you mentioned you have this long running business with IronTech. Can you take us through the why? Because every business, when you decide to make a business, there's something that's driving you. Like your mission statement, your value statement. But give us to tell us a story about the why IronTech.
That's a great question. Well, the 25 years ago, I was in the software industry. The .com bust hit. I live in a small manufacturing town in Arkansas without a college degree. And even though I was the number two guy in the software company, it had 30 or 40 people at its peak. Um, so it wasn't, trivial. Uh,
Do you mind me
I
asking
couldn't
what
get a
part of
job.
Arkansas? I have a sister that lives in Cabot, Arkansas, outside of North Little Rock.
Yeah, I'm in Fort Smith. So we're right
Oh,
geographically, we're in the middle of, we're
yeah.
halfway between Little Rock and Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Yeah. So, geography lesson for everyone.
Yeah.
But I did that typical thing that readers of the E Myth, the entrepreneurial myth from back in the 30 years ago, which I'm a great fan of that book. I didn't have any choice but to apply my skills and start my own business for a job, right? It wasn't like I dreamed up this wonderful thing and, and going to do it. So I had to have a job. I didn't want to move. And in the dot-com days, even with a college degree and living in Silicon Valley, a lot of unemployed people were there.
Mhm.
Uh, so we did that, and I started it doing anything I could: software development, IT management, mostly break fix, like back in those days. And then it gradually grew into managed services. And then about 10 years ago in July, I was visited by an FBI agent, and he said, he walked into the office, and it was just me and the president of the company. He wasn't president then, but he is now. Um, it was one of those days, one of those weird holidays. It was like the Friday before July 4th or something like that. And so me and him were the only ones in the office. FBI says, I'm so and so with the FBI. I'm looking for Tom Kirkham. And I said, well, that's me. And he goes, you're in trouble, but not with us. And he proceeded to tell me that I'm on an ISIS kill list. And that nothing quite ruins your day than an FBI agent telling you you're on an ISIS kill list. And so that was the beginning of me getting really, really serious about cybersecurity. So around about that time, we quit doing all break fix. It's all in, one fixed rate, and really looking after increasing productivity and efficiency in their IT environment, right? Because that's why you invest
Mhm.
in information technology. That's the whole purpose of it. And then after discovering that the only reason I'm on this ISIS kill list is because of a data breach, Sun Microsystems database, .com days again, I'd seen some stuff, double secret stuff, that you had to put all your name and address and everything in, and they'd give you a badge to go into this double secret rooms to see this new technology. And that was the database that they'd hacked. That was it. It was about 3 or 4 thousand people all over the United States that just happened to be in Chicago on that day looking at Sun Microsystems prototypes. That really drove my passion for cybersecurity. And shortly thereafter, at first, these MSPs, they try to add on the EDRs and the better stuff, right? And make it optional. And as time went on, a month or a year went on, half of our clients weren't getting the right stuff. And I'm thinking, well, these clients are a threat vector to us, which means they're a threat vector to everyone we take care of. And I think some MSPs out there overlook this. You have got to treat a client as a potential adversary, not maliciously.
Mhm.
It's just it can just happen. So we made a decision that you either buy this stuff or you go somewhere else. And so all of our clients bought it. We've been sitting on one partner for 10 years now, I think. And of course, all these other best practices, and we're a best of breed company. So we do our best to select the best technology, not just because it's part of a suite to make our jobs easier. Is we want the best stuff
Mhm.
out there and for our clients. And consequently, all of our clients are much more secure now. And I think we're right on the verge of requiring password managers, MFA, as best we can enforce it. And seems like there was something else, but that's how serious we are about it. We're willing to walk away from a client if they're not going to do what we tell them to. We call that leaving the reservation, you know.
Yes.
And as everyone knows, if you're in this business, when clients think they know more than you do, and they just do their own thing, you know you're going to get rid of them at some day, some
Yeah.
point, or they're going to leave. Either one. You might as well just go ahead and you might as well just go ahead and break up with them, right?
Yeah. So speaking
So,
of that, 25 years, that covers a lot of changes in industry, different rounds of various emerging techs have come along the way. I mean, you've seen us go from, I like to always pull these up in different episodes, but from the days of, like these discs, even the big record player size ones and the tape, and then of course zip drives, USBs, the STDs, all the media has changed to where, long ago it was like kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and now we're at terabytes galore. And so you've seen the changes in the amount of data that we've gone through. You've seen the changes in applications and all of this emerging tech in 25 years. What would you say has been one of the most challenging times in that 25 years where you've had to do a lot of like, hand holding for your clients or to, and even yourself, the challenge of, rising to supporting or securing a new or emerging technology. And it doesn't, like now the big challenge everybody is like what AI is going to shape and do. But in that 25 years, is there a time when you can look back and say, hey, this is a particular moment where it was pretty challenging?
well, at the risk of sounding egotistical, one of my superpowers is to always look into the future. So I've usually been ahead of the curve, and in fact, I'm usually too early. So, especially like in AI, I spent most of last year, really doing a lot of research on it, and it's changing so fast that it's really hard to keep up with it. I don't know that anybody really can. But gosh, that's a really tough question. And I've been doing this for 40 years.
Hmm.
My first computer was an IBM XT, True Blue XT, green screen. I got the hard drive, 10 megabyte hard drive, and the clickety IBM keyboard and all of that. And then as a hobbyist, I built computers. Everybody went through that. I think my first modem, which was $300 or $400 back in those days, that was a lot of money, and it was 1200 baud modem. So that was a hell of an upgrade. And I was on the internet before there was a World Wide Web. So I don't know. I know there's a number of listeners that are probably the same way because I think that's something inherent in being a nerd, right?
Hmm.
And I fully confess to that. I am not ashamed of it, but it, it's it's nothing really surprised me. Um, I think it might be, if I had to guess, I think the social media thing kind of caught me a little bit by surprise, even though I was one of the very first people on my Facebook. Or no, it was the Facebook. It was MySpace was the one before that.
Hmm.
I can remember having phone calls with people in the valley, and they go, "Oh man, have you heard of this company, Google?" Back then everybody went to Yahoo to do their searches,
Hmm.
and and I said, "No, I checked into it, and I can remember when InfoSeek was popular. That would be a power user's search
Yeah.
engine." And that became part of Disney. And it was a lot of fun living through the .com days.
Hmm.
But I don't know that anything took. You could probably figure something out that may have taken me by surprise. It was hard to adapt to. But
Hmm.
I welcome the days of SSDs. We, as a company, as this company, never once used tapes for backup.
Okay.
I hated tapes from the very first day,
Hmm.
or in my first days in backup. And we've always used external hard drives. That was before you could, do it online in the cloud. But and I know that was probably a bad idea, but I was seeing such a failure rate with tapes that I
Okay.
decided I couldn't count on that media being there when I really needed it anyway.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I think maybe the price dropping, that took a little bit of shift. I think that takes a shift for even business owners. You think about this in the IBM XT days. What is this, 80s, right?
Hmm.
That was an expensive investment.
Yes, it was.
5 grand plus, right? I think that was like the minimum price for an XT, a true blue XT.
Mhm.
And then you had to train somebody on how to use it because all of these applications,
They were very specialized. Yeah.
well, VisiCalc maybe,
Proprietary.
WordStar, they had a word processor and a spreadsheet. Anything else you wanted to do with it, pretty much had to write it yourself.
Hmm.
So it was a significant investment. And I think to this day, especially people of my generation, still consider computers as an expense and they're dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm amazed at the people that I talk to, and they're almost always older. And I said, "Oh, well, I bought a new laptop," and I said I kept the other one for 2 years, and that's unusual for me. And the guy says, "Oh my gosh, I bought a new laptop, and my other one was like 7 years old, and I can't believe how much faster it is." And I said, How much money do you make an hour?" You know, because I got on my soapbox. And I was going, do you make, what do you, $100 an hour, $500 an hour? It's just between me and you. You don't, yeah, I don't care, you know? And I said, you realize that just to save another couple of hundred, $300 over that 5 year period, it cost you 20% in productivity.
Yeah.
And if it's $100 an hour, that was the stupidest thing you could have ever done, you know?
Yeah.
And as a company, we believe that. And now granted, I understand that, new computers and getting them installed and getting them all set up
Transferring all your apps and data, and it's a little bit of headache for some people. But there's two rules that I lived most of my life by, because lots of folks throughout my career would say, "Hey, what do you recommend, this or this processor?" Or take, when it was early in the days of the video card graphic cards, people were like, "Oh, I want to play this game. What video card do you recommend?" And doing recommendations is one thing, but when it came to just general electronic advice I'd give people, I said, here's my two rules. Does your current tech do what you need it to do, the need? And if the
right,
answer is yes, then the second question, does it do that as fast as you want it to? The second question is the want. And of course, if it was no was either one, then definitely on the first one was no, you got to upgrade immediately. If the second answer is no, it's a matter of how important is your time? Just like you said, is your time worth $100 an hour, 500 an hour? That's the second no. But of course, if it's yes, it does what I need to do, and it does as fast as I want to do, I could care less how long it takes, and okay, then don't upgrade yet. So those have been always my two rules there. Tom, you mentioned you got 40 plus years in your career, your company you've been running for 25 plus years. I know there's been, a lot that you've seen and covered throughout the changes in technology and in the cyber landscape. But in your journey, in your career, like I said, you're never ending, learning and being ahead of the curve. Is there people in the industry, whether people that have been leaders or mentors or people you admired or looked up to? This is kind of a question to kind of I like to use the term shine a light on those names of people that you've respected, that led the way from you, a trailblazer, or someone to say, you know what, at one point in my career, I was like, I wanted to be like this guy or this lady, or they had an impact upon me. So is there anybody you'd like to shine a light on their names?
oh wow. I read a lot of executive biographies, and I was reading the one written by Walter Isaacson for Jobs. I think it was Walter Isaacson. It was the one that Aaron Sorkin did the screenplay for the movie.
Okay.
Um, and then uh, the Musk biography came out about the same time, and I read that, and I was an early believer in Tesla, and I, I'm deeply influenced by the things that they do right. And one of the takeaways from Steve Jobs was, one time, um, what's his co-founder's name?
Oh, oh goodness.
Yeah, we're both going to
Was
lose
was
computer trivia. Wozniak, yeah,
yeah,
Steve Wozniak.
yeah.
He was mad at him, and he's going, "What do you do here? You're not an engineer, you're not a designer, you're not I don't know what you are. What do you do?" And he goes, "I'm the conductor." And he says, "And you're first chair violin." You're the best violinist we have. You're right up front, buddy. But I'm the one that gets everybody to play the same song the same way and put in a performance.
Visionary.
And yeah, and the visionary component absolutely is very important. And Musk is a visionary. I'd say that most of mine, Bill Gates, a little slow, but when he saw it, it was clear. It was crystal clear. That was a big change for Microsoft to go to the web-centric world.
Yes, most
That was
definitely.
turning an aircraft carrier.
Hmm.
But then the way they dominated the PC industry, they sold an operating system to IBM that they didn't even have. And they went and acquired CPM's operating system dirt cheap. I think it was $100,000 maybe, and changed the A to a C. So that's when the C drive became the hard drive, and
Hmm.
the A drive was the floppy. That's basically all they did to CPM, and that became PC DOS, which became MS DOS, and then Microsoft used DOS, and then Windows, especially with the success of Windows 3.1. They started leveraging their Office suite, and for some reason, WordPerfect and Lotus wouldn't quite run just right on Windows, even though it was designed for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the kind of ruthlessness. I'm not into that. I'd much prefer a win-win for everybody. But
Not
those are
everybody was
tact.
willing to embrace open source either in those days. Only the true
Well, yeah,
hobbyists.
that's right. Oh, yeah, gosh, even to this day, I believe it or not, I still come across people say, "Well, that's open source. You know,
Mhm.
it's going to be buggy and it's full of holes." And I'm going, "You have no concept of what open source is."
Yeah.
Do you realize practically everything you use, I don't care if it's a Mac or PC or, well, Linux, uh, there's so much open source stuff in it that, you couldn't pull it all out. It would
Yeah.
quit working.
Oh yeah, a lot of
But
great CM and EDR tools owe all of their financial glory to open source. So I won't name any, but some of the biggest names in the business are built upon open source tools. So that's another discussion for another time when we have some lawyers present to keep us out of trouble. Um, a lot of folks that I make these videos for is to offer those insights and perspectives from all kinds of what I call level 99 experts in industry and so forth. And how our paths cross, actually, just to share with everyone, is that we're both nominated for Cyber Educator of the Year by the Cybersecurity Awards. And so from one educator to the next, that's what another thing we do, with the evangelism that Tom does and, like these podcasts that I do and all the work that I do with my students globally. What is, with people watching this, my audience is really who I try to reach is the people that, one, I try to reach people in industry to give them some insights and perspectives of these different, you know, what I call, maybe call it genres of cybersecurity or different facets of cybersecurity. But it's also aimed at the person that's on the fence, whether they're a high school, college dropout, someone that's mid-career looking to change up their career because they kind of hit what I call the ceiling in their career, and they hear a lot of great things about cyber. Cyber seems exciting to them. So it's just for that person that's on the fence that hasn't made that decision to quite jump into the pool yet. So with that being said, what would you recommend for someone that wants to get their feet wet, but they try to look up cyber on the internet and they get like 100 million responses from the search results of cyber and all these different YouTube channels, websites, people just saying, "Hey, pay me some money," right? There's a lot of resources that take money from folks, and but Tom, what would you recommend if someone just said, "Where can I get a start?" Is there a website, blog, YouTube channel that you could recommend? And even if it's your own and your own socials, this is I guess the time we could talk about that.
well, yeah, I would. Gosh, you're right. There's so many out there now. Our Kirkham IronTech YouTube channel has got there's hundreds of hours of me on there, and I really think that it would be a really good start if you're not already part of the industry. You got to remember who I'm talking to every day. But to go back a couple of steps, I think I see so many people that get into this industry, especially the cybersecurity part of it, because there's money in it. And I've found over the years that the people with a passion are the ones that rise to the top. I mean, if you can't, one of the things I'm really good at thinking like a criminal, you know? It's like when I hire an attorney, especially if it's going to be a trial, I want them to know how to bribe a jury. I don't I'm not saying I want them to bribe a jury,
Yeah,
but I want them to be that good at what they do that they would that they oh, well, here's how you do it, but we're not doing that because that's going to get everybody in a lot of trouble, right?
yeah,
That the best attorneys are can think like that, and I think the best security people have the ability to think like a criminal. It's like only the paranoid survive, to quote Andy Grove. It it and that's if you don't have the passion for it of any part of your job, um, you've got to really understand that it's short-term thinking anyway.
hmm
Now, if you got a passion for it, if you're nerdy and you like electronics and dealing with ones and zeros or Python code or whatever, then find your own path. And even if you're a coder, there's plenty of security paths to go down.
definitely.
Yeah, and you could probably rattle off 10 different certification paths that would accomplish
Oh yeah,
what you
there's a
need to.
hundred plus. So, um,
But a friend of mine is the CEO of a public company, a big data company that he founded. And I don't know how much they do, a few hundred million a year. I mean, they're big. They're a good sized company. And he went to college for half a semester after high school and dropped out because he had so much passion that he already knew more than what he was getting instructed. And he ended up being a lifelong learner. He just buckled down
I love
and
it.
read books and watched videos and learned it on his own. He built that foundation based upon basically first principles, right? And so from then he could build a much richer environment. And that led to him becoming a director at Splunk and then starting his own company. And that is somebody that's on my mentor list. We've remained friends. He's worked for me for twice, and occasionally we'll get on a call or get together and get caught up and things like that. But it's like that input. It's like taking something from Jobs or taking something from Musk. I'd have to say that our chief marketing officer and the president of the company, they do things the way I wouldn't do it. And if it's better than the way I would do it, then I've got to start thinking about that. Does that work with me? Does that work with my style? Or is it just a tool I need to use because they're the best at it?
Hmm
So to circle back around
No.
to that mentor thing, I think you can learn anything from anyone.
hmm
And it's picking up those bits and pieces and what fits for your own values, where your path in life is leading you to, philosophical beliefs, and your own personal style. I think that I think in a way everybody's a mentor. I've learned stuff from interns. So I think that's probably the best answer I could come up to that. So
I like that. So this is a moment in the podcast where I like to take a kind of a break from the technical discussions that we've had, because we talked a lot about the history of your company, your books, and all the cyber chat. But this is where I like to have what I call my moment of levity with my guests. So this is just a speed round of questions. There's no right or wrong answers, purely for fun. So if you're willing to humor me, I'll hit you with some questions, and whatever the first answer pops in your mind, let's go. Are you ready?
do it.
Okay. All right. The first one divides the room. Okay. It's Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Star Trek. Which generation of Star Trek in particular?
Oh man, I like them all. But
Okay.
at the core of it, I go back to the original '60s series.
The
But I'm an old
original.
guy.
The
I
Shatner
mean,
and the
I'm an old
Nimoy,
guy.
right?
Yeah, well, there was some. The next generation only got good after Brannon Braga started writing. And for those of you that don't know, this is a very underappreciated nerd uh, topic. The original Carl Sagan Cosmos series, there were three people on it: Carl Sagan, Ann Druyan, which is Carl's wife, and Brannon Braga wrote a lot of it. And so years later, he joined the Next Generation. I think the third or fourth season. And it really, the stories got so much richer and better. You remember.
Yeah.
And they were really good, really good. And but then I like the reboot too, especially the first couple. You know,
Okay.
I thought those were good. That's tough. I can't say that about all the Star Wars
Yeah.
stuff though.
Oh yeah. Good answer. Thanks for answering the follow-up in detail. Cake or pie?
That's a cake all the way.
Cake? What kind of cake?
And- well, cheesecake's my favorite,
Cheesecake.
but
Nice. Have you tried
yeah,
all of the
but it
cheesecakes at Cheesecake Factory yet?
no, actually, I'm a traditional. I just want plain New York style
Plain
cheesecake,
New
but
York style.
I'll eat any of them. And then I'm not sure technically if cheesecake is a cake, but taking cheesecake out of the picture, I would still pick cake.
Still cook cake. Okay. Is a hot dog
Yeah.
a sandwich?
No,
Okay.
it's a hot dog.
There we go. What has been your
Well, wait a
most
minute. Well,
oh,
wait. You must think something different for you to ask
no,
that.
actually, I don't think a hot dog's a sandwich either. I think the bread has to be separated, right? You got to have a layer of bread, bunch of stuff, and another layer of bread. So, for example, if someone on this side of the planet put a piece of bread on the ground and someone on the other side of the planet put a piece of bread on the ground, it would be an earth sandwich.
I can go with that. Well,
So,
and not only that, they're different. They're buns. Like, yeah, we're probably both wrong.
who knows, right? What has been the most favorite book of all time that you've read, and what was the last book you read?
Oh, wow. I read a lot. I'll tell you, one of the first books that I read when I started investing a lot was by Peter Lynch, and it was Beating the Street. And he explained
And I'm
and for
assuming
those
the
of you that
street you
don't
mean
know,
Wall Street, not Sesame Street.
right, right. Uh, he ran Fidelity's Magellan Fund, which for
Mhm.
many, many years was the most successful mutual fund out there. I mean, and he could just pick stocks, he was golden
Yeah.
at it. And I read that book, and it really changed my life when I started doing my own investments, and it's made a big difference in my life. And that's one of my favorite books of all time. The book that I'm still working my way through right now is The Web of Meaning, and it's kind of hard to talk about what it's, and I can't remember the author, but it's about how we're all interrelated, nature. You know, if you've read Homo Sapiens by Yuval Harari, he walks through how civilization has grown since it began and how we're all interrelated. And his last book, Nexus, is about what's happening in modern society with the internet and bombarded with all this information. And we don't know if it's real or not, and a lot of all the implications of that. And I'm still working my way through it, but and then it delves into quantum consciousness and these questions of life and what's the meaning of life and what is time. It touches on a lot of these different things.
Well, thank you for sharing
So
those
I got a
books.
little. I probably just lost half the audience right
No, no,
there.
no. What I like is if you definitely give me the links to all those books you just mentioned, and we're going to put them in the description below. So if anyone's interested in checking out those books and reading something to gain again, everything you learn and read just creates another neural pathway in your brain. So, reading and studying is the best thing for your mental awareness and health. So I love that. So definitely share those links with me.
Yeah, another one that is that I read recently is 10% Human, and it is absolutely fascinating how little of your body has human DNA in it. Now, I know if you go all the way back to the beginning of organisms on the planet, the DNA all ties together. But mitochondria,
Mhm.
your body has to have mitochondria.
Mhm.
You will die instantly if your mitochondria stops functioning. They're
Yeah.
not human DNA. That is a different organism that is a what's it called? We have a bio. We both have to have each other. And
Mm.
when you start learning that all of these different organisms that's in and on your body, have a symbiotic relationship with us,
Hmm.
and how it's so easy to mess that up and cause all kinds of health problems, mental problems. You know, it's like rabies in a dog, right? It's a bacterial or a virus that
Hmm.
gets in, and then it's that virus's number one job is to reproduce. So what does it do? It controls that dog's brain to go and attack and bite people to infect.
Hmm.
So the things that you consume and the that can all influence your brain, and that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. I think the show and the game series Last of Us talks about the mushrooms, and then we're only separated by a little bit of our body temperature. Otherwise, it could be much closer from a DNA perspective than anything else on the planet, mushrooms and humans. So interesting perspectives there. I like to give all my guests an opportunity to also talk about, other than the day job and running the company and doing educational content for the internet and everybody to the benefit of everybody in the world. So we thank you, Tom, for like your YouTube channel and all the information that you share, on a daily basis with everybody in the world. But is there any other personal projects where you put in your time, energy, money into, and it could even be work that you do for like nonprofits, volunteer work, charities, or even if you don't do any work for them, but then that you want to maybe shine a light on these nonprofit organizations doing some good in the world?
Yeah, so side project, I'm working on a movie that is called The Last Gray Hat. So it's
Oh,
about hacking, and coming soon to a screen near you. Maybe this year, probably next. But that's been a lot of fun to be creative rather than logical, you know. And but one of the things that I have set forth, I have yet to launch. I'm still trying to figure out the way to do it. Is we have a real need for critical thinking skills. Everyone of any age,
oh yeah.
especially in these days, to where we're bombarded with so much information. So many people just sit there and scroll Facebook, and I agree with this, I don't agree with that, and this makes me mad, and this makes me happy.
Mindlessly scrolling. Yep.
Exactly. And they're not taking time to reflect and and critically think about these inputs that they're getting. And it's just impulsive, reactionary consideration. And usually it defaults to whatever tribe you think you're in. And I think that's a huge problem. Um, it allows psyops to work and the hackers to get in.
I mean, that's what clickbait and marketing, right? Having the headlines. We become a society where we just read the headlines. And so most of the population just reads the headline, right? Or listens to the
Mhm.
first statement of a video on their TikToks or YouTube shorts or whatever they're getting their media content from. But then maybe even a smaller percentage will actually read the article. And then even a very minute part of the population will even look at the sources that are cited and actually look at the scientific reports, the actual polls, like read through the data that thing was written and based on through the lens or view or perspective of that tribe, political affiliation, whatever the agenda is of that organization, filtering that content to elicit an emotion or to pull your thought to their direction. I think we are in a very dangerous times of misinformation and of emotional, swaying with content. And I think that you're absolutely right. We need people to go back to really thinking it through, not just because so and so said something, a celebrity said something, or this talking face on the internet said something like, "Oh yeah, what he said." Do a little bit of digging. Takes 1-2 minutes to just kind of look through some sources and look at the information yourself and be well informed. I think that's what we're missing. There was a time where people wanted to be super informed. Now people are just so busy with their with like the mindlessly scrolling, trying to laugh at some stuff, trying to get their news all through this little screen that we have in our hands. And it's like it's a shame that we have this like such a powerful device in the palm of our hands that we couldn't phantom 10 plus years ago, but we have all the knowledge and information on the planet at the palm of our hands, yet we don't use it. So I think you're onto something there with the critical thinking there, Tom.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to figure out how I want to start a foundation along those lines, and so if anybody's interested, reach out to me. You can go to tomkirkham.com. That's my personal page, and just do a contact form, and I'll get it. I'm still trying to formulate what I want to try to accomplish there, but that it's everybody's just consuming the information, and we're all being manipulated.
Of course.
And so if you think whatever tribe you're in is not manipulating you, well, you don't have all of the story.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, you
Yeah.
just don't.
Who was the radio personality he would end his broadcast with, and that's the rest of the story? It was it Paul?
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey. I
I,
miss the days of Paul Harvey or real 60 Minutes investigative stories and stuff. We need to bring some of that back. Tom, I wish we could talk for hours and hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. I do like to give all of my guests the final word. So whatever statement or information you'd like to share, I'm definitely excited to hear more. So as you have more information, like a movie trailer for the Last Gray Hat, I'm super. You got my interest there. So if you have any links or trailers about the film, we'd love to include it in the description below. And the books you've mentioned, anything you mentioned, and anything you want to share, give me all those links, and they'll be right there. So you folks watching, don't worry about the Google search. And hey, what did he say 5 minutes ago? We got all the links right down here below to save you the going back and forth in the video. But yeah, Tom, I would like to give you the final word. So
it was just a pleasure to be here. You're a great host, and thanks for pulling those things out of me. And hopefully, I was coherent with it all. But the number one thing is, I just want to remind everybody: just because you're an expert in cybersecurity, don't think you can't be conned. And that's what these are. These are professional con artists. And if you think you know more about psychology than they do, you're
yeah, you're
probably
mistaken.
wrong. You're probably wrong. And human behavior and behavioral profiling and even understanding what a psyops is. If you don't understand that, believe me, you can be conned. So that's my stay vigilant is my final word.
I love it. Well, Tom, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story and about IronTech and a little bit of insight perspectives into the cyberspace as you see it. I do appreciate your time. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No, my pleasure.